Not paying incarcerated persons a decent minimum wage has been termed one of the worst injustices America has ever perpetuated. New York State Senator Zellnor Myrie will be my guest in less than a minute to discuss his efforts to raise the minimum wage for prisoners, how much it will be and why, and what is the support in Albany for all this. Also in this program, it's Welcome to New York to the new Barbados Consul General Ori Holder. We'll talk about his plans for Barbadian residents living in the Big Apple and for Barbadian small business owners. This is Brooklyn 45. We begin with raising the prison minimum wage. State Senator Zellnor Myrie, this is your first appearance on Brooklyn 45.
That's right. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Welcome home.
Yes. I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
A lot of people are wondering, what is this about a minimum wage for prisoners?
Well, so what we have in New York right now essentially is modern day slavery. You have the incarcerated folks who are paying their debt to society and are being forced to do work for as little as 10 cents an hour. The average worker gets about 62 cents an hour, and this is a fundamental injustice. This has a history with what we've seen in this country in using the incarcerated for profit. So in New York, you have a bunch of people who are incarcerated who are working for what I would call slave wages for companies that are making millions of dollars. Today, we said this is too much. We want to institute a minimum wage that would pay them at least $3. And I think it is something that the time has long come for it.
What is the wage they're paid right now? You mentioned a figure earlier.
So there's no minimum wage for people who are incarcerated and working. So it varies. It depends on what programs you qualify for, depends on how long you've been in. But you have people that are making license plates. Every single license plate in the state of New York is made by someone who's incarcerated, and they have folks that are making as little as 10 cents an hour.
Wow. What is a company that reaps the benefits of all this? So
there's a company called Corecraft, which contracts solely with government agencies. Their annual revenue is $50 million. So think about that. You have a workforce. You are mandated in many cases when you are incarcerated to do at least 6 hours of labor a day, 5 days a week. If you as a company can make $50 million in a year, there is no reason why you should be paying folks 10 cents an hour.
Now, who's going to pay this minimum wage?
So this would be the responsibility of the company. Just like we have minimum wage requirements for those who are not incarcerated, it is the same standard for those who are incarcerated. And New York, I know we like to fancy ourselves a leader and a progressive capital of the nation, but we are at the bottom in this area. There are a number of other states that already have done this, states like Alaska, states like Maine, states like Nevada. This is something that is long overdue.
You've been talking to people about all this. What kind of support do you have for it?
You know, we saw something very unfortunate happen at the Metropolitan Detention Center. There was an instance there where those who were incarcerated went without power, went without heat, went without food, and there was a lot of attention, in fact, international attention at what was going on there. It's a federal facility in Brooklyn. I think that it is appropriate with the public's attention on the rights of those who are incarcerated for us to now be proactive and say this is what they deserve. So when I talk to folks, people say this is something that we can get behind. And it's not just the criminal justice reform crowd. We had a lot of people from labor. We have a lot of labor unions that are supporting this because this is, in fact, a labor issue.
So the public, how do they feel about a wage, a minimum wage, a wage for incarcerated people?
You know, I think we have a long journey. I think we have to win some hearts and some minds because there are a lot of people who still view those who are incarcerated as not human. There are folks who say, well, we are already paying for their housing. We're already paying for their food. Why should we be giving them a minimum wage? And to that, I say this is a moral imperative. This is about human rights. What we have right now is the equivalent to modern day slavery. When we abolished slavery in the 13th Amendment, there was a clause that said involuntary servitude is okay if it's used as punishment for a crime. And that little clause was used to institute slavery by way of forcing the incarcerated to work. We think that in New York, we should not be party to that.
When was the last time there was a wage increase?
In 1993, that was the last time, and it was actually Governor Mario Cuomo who increased it. Now, it was only a couple of cents, but it was an increase nonetheless. And I think that it is long overdue. I mean, we're talking almost 25 years ago. I think it's time for a raise.
How do you get this bill passed? What's the bill again?
The Prison Minimum Wage Act.
The Prison Minimum Wage Act.
That's right.
Okay. How do you get that passed?
So I think we got to win over some of the folks in my own Democratic conference. We have some folks that are not based in New York City. We have some folks that are from districts that have large prison populations. But I think if we frame this issue as a human right issue, we frame this as a labor issue, that I think that we can convince our friends on the Democratic side. I am pessimistic that we'll get any Republicans to sign on to this, right? But I'm pretty confident that with enough conversation, with enough public discourse, we'll have some of our Democratic colleagues join on as well.
Okay, and it's got to be supported in both houses?
That's right. And so Assemblyman Nick Perry introduced this bill in the Assembly. I have great confidence in Nick Perry. He has been in the Assembly for over 26 years, so he knows how the legislative process goes. He's already gathered co-sponsors. I have gathered co-sponsors in my house. I think we need to pass it in both houses and then put it on the governor's desk.
Some of your colleagues say that if you paid the incarcerated a minimum wage, it would help them to build better lives.
I think that's 100% correct.
How?
We call this the Department of Corrections, right? This is supposed to rehabilitate. It is supposed to help folks reintegrate into society when they leave, but then we put them in and we take away their dignity. And we say, you're going to work for slave wages. What this allows for is to not only increase the dignity, but the resources that they have when they come out of prison, right? A lot of times you have people coming out because they have worked for so little, they don't have the resources to even take a bus trip back home, right? They have to pay for things like phone calls with their families. They have to buy thermals. There are a number of things that they can't do because they don't have the resources. I think that this gives them what they need to reintegrate into society.
Now, while they are incarcerated, I almost said in prison.
Yep.
What is the correct?
So I think
in prison or incarcerated?
So I like to use those who are incarcerated or incarcerated persons because I think there is a connotation with saying prison or prisoners. I think it dehumanizes a lot of folks, and people already see them as other. So I like to say persons who are incarcerated.
Okay. No, they earn money while they're incarcerated. What do they do with this money?
So it is up to them in many instances. As the law currently stands, the money that you earn working, you can spend it on items in commissary, or you can hold on to it. And I think that what this is going to do is give people the choice on what to do. You know, we have a number of formerly incarcerated persons who support this bill who spoke to us about how their experience was when they left, and even while they were while they were incarcerated. And the truth is that it is just not enough to survive. It is not a dignified living, and I think that this bill is going to add some.
What is the prison population in New York?
So we have over 54,000 people who are incarcerated in the state of New York.
54,000?
That's correct.
Okay. And is there a check, a follow-up? You have organizations who have been checking how long they've been there and whether they are there justly or unjustly?
You know, the information that we have, we know that at least 30% of the people who are incarcerated did not commit the crime that they are alleged to have committed, which is a very high number. I believe that the number is probably even higher if we did some more digging. But there are a number of criminal justice reform organizations that work with the incarcerated and work with the formerly incarcerated. I had the honor of teaching in a maximum security prison upstate while I was in law school, and it was really one of the most transformative experiences I've ever had because I saw up close every single week how those who were incarcerated live. And what all they wanted was to live with dignity, and they wanted to rehabilitate their lives. They wanted to come out with an education. They wanted to come out with the resources to give back to the community. And that is why I am so passionate about this bill, because I think it is one step to help with integration.
And you were convinced that they want to come out and do better.
That's 100% correct. And not only is it just a feeling or a passion of mine, The data bears that out. Those who undergo meaningful work, those who undergo prison education, the rates of recidivism are significantly lower. Right? So this is what is so baffling to me about opponents of this. They say, well, they deserve to be there, and then you don't want to give them the resources. You don't want them to have a dignified living. They come out more damaged than they came in. And then they end up being another tax to our community. So why not invest in people while they're incarcerated, have them start paying back their debt to society as soon as they go in, so that when they come out, they're ready to contribute.
What are some of the organizations supporting this bill?
Yeah, so we have, like I mentioned, Labor. CWA has been extremely supportive. RWDSU, who supported who helped lead the fight to raise the minimum wage for everyone else in the state to $15. We also have the Fortune Society, which works with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated folks to help them reintegrate into society. Like I mentioned, we have a number of my colleagues who have already sponsored, and I look forward to having a number of other organizations come on board as we continue this campaign.
Are there not-for-profit organizations that work specifically with these incarcerated persons?
Yes.
And what do they do with them?
Yeah, so there are a number of really, really great organizations. One comes to mind. We had a spokesperson from this organization speak at a press conference where we introduced this bill. It is the Parole Protection Project, and they work with folks who are just coming out, right? And they begin the work with them when they're already in to prepare them for coming out. So, you look at something as simple as building a resume to get integrated into society. What we're saying is, if we increase the minimum wage, they get to build their resume while they're incarcerated so that they can come out and do so in a really dignified way. We look forward to getting other nonprofits on board. I think that we're going to have a wide support in this community. Our challenge is going to be winning over the hearts and minds of the public.
You said this community. What community is that? Wide support in this community? You're talking about your community as an elected official. You're talking about the Brooklyn community, the New York community. What community?
So I think the criminal justice reform community, it was what I was referencing there. I think they're going to be very supportive of this. They've indicated that they will. I think our job, and certainly my job as an elected official, is to go back to my community and say, this is why this is important to you, right? We have pockets of my district that have been disproportionately affected by our mass incarceration complex. And I think about those neighborhoods that have been devastated by the over-policing of the neighborhood, of people getting drug charges that have put them away for things that we are now considering legalizing. And I think to those communities that have been disproportionately affected, this is going to be important, because now you're saying the person that you have, your loved one that is in prison now, they're going to have a dignified living. They're going to be able to come out with some resources so they could contribute to the neighborhood as soon as they come back.
Are there specific communities that are disproportionately affected by all this?
Yeah.
And I mean geographic communities as well as ethnic communities.
Absolutely. We look at Central Brooklyn. I have a lot of neighborhoods in my district. I was born and raised in Flatbush, but I also have Brownsville. I also have Crown Heights, and those are two neighborhoods that have been disproportionately affected. You look at the makeup of those neighborhoods, and it's mostly Black and brown folks, right, who have been affected by our mass incarceration complex. So I think that when we talk about restorative justice, this isn't just about, okay, well, let's pie in the sky things. There are real consequences for the neighborhoods that have been affected.
At the end of the day, you need the governor's support. Where is he on this?
I'd like to think that the governor, having being the son of the last governor to do this, I'm hoping that in this instance, he'd like to one-up his father and give a bigger raise than he did back in 1993.
One-up his father.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
He has an election coming up.
All right. Well, we just came off of one, but we'll see. Yeah.
You referred to this situation as modern-day slavery. Expand on that a little.
So what I referenced earlier about the 13th Amendment, what we saw after the abolition of slavery, the southern states, they lost a big economic engine. They had used our people as a form of economic benefit. Because we left the clause in that allowed for you to do involuntary servitude via punishment for a crime, what you saw was the creation of laws to increase the prison population because they knew that they could continue this economic engine via the people in prison. I think we are in a similar situation today. We have seen many laws used to incarcerate a lot of black and brown people, and that servitude and that labor, I think they've taken advantage of that, and it is why I see a straight line from that to today.
The prison minimum wage. Okay. You've got 30 seconds. Sell us.
Look, this is about human rights. This is about whether we consider people human, even if they have made mistakes. There is no one in this country that thinks it would be acceptable to work for 10 cents an hour. It should not be acceptable for those who are incarcerated.
Thank you very much, Senator Myrie.
Thank you.
And welcome to Brooklyn 45. Your first appearance here with us. I'm sure you're going to be back.
I will be
back. We're going to invite you back.
Please, have me back. Have me back. Thank you very much.
Okay. Barbados has a new Consul General, Oral Holder. Barbados has a new Consul General. And for those of you who are from Barbados, you know him as Mackie Holder. And for those of you who are not from Barbados, Mackie, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Sam.
In the cold.
In the cold, but it's always an honor to do the country's business, so I'm happy to be here.
What are some programs that you have in mind to implement? I know this is.
Well, I've just started,
yes.
So I'm trying to obviously get familiar with the various players.
Sure.
I've met with the associations, and in fact, I met with them the day after I came. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to lay the groundwork. Obviously, we're trying to make our missions and our consulates a little more business-oriented. And my programs are to try to get the associations to be a bit more targeted, first a bit more united.
Ooh.
I think it's important that Barbadian associations be as united as possible. We are, in the context of New York, a small number of people. Mm-hmm. We have achieved a lot as a small country, but I think we have to understand that the more we are together, the more we can achieve. Mm-hmm. And going wider, that if we treat our friends and neighbors in CARICOM, that we can achieve a whole lot more. Mm-hmm. So one of my main aims is to really see the various associations come together and do some things together. I honestly feel that things like Heroes Day, the Barbados Day, which is a phenomenal thing. Congrats to those behind that. Mm. And independence. Those things that are significant to Barbados mean something to Barbados. That I really feel that all the various associations should come together, yes, and work together, pool their resources, pool their talents, and let us, make things bigger and especially better,
there are several Barbadian organizations that may want to work with your office to help Barbadians back home. How do you help them do that?
Let me just say first that I'm here to work with any and every organization and individuals, because there are a number of individuals who do not belong to organizations, but are willing to contribute their skills, their talents, their experience. And of course, we're happy to have their remittances and other investments. I want Barbadians to see themselves as investors, and just as we like to own a piece of the rock, you can also own a business, a bread and breakfast, or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. So I'm here to work with any and everybody. And also friends of Barbados. We live in a big world, so if you
don't mean friends as an organization.
No, friends, different countries. Yes. If you're Nigerian, if you're from Iceland and you want to do business with us, I'm happy to entertain you. I'm representing the government of Barbados and the people of Barbados. So that is my opening statement.
For
I'm
people
here-
who are listening who don't know anything about a consul general, what is the job of a consul general?
really to look after the interests of Barbadians who live in the jurisdiction. For me, that would be New York, and the other 10 states for which I have responsibility. Bring them together. You know, there are aspects to the consulate, dealing with things like passports and so on, helping people to those who want to go back home to live, making the process easier for them.
Yes.
But also to, you know, as a cement, so to speak, to, you know, unite people, bring them together, culturally and otherwise.
What kind of services are available for Barbadians who come here with nothing, with no support, and they come to your office and say, we need help? I mean, you know what is going on in the United States right now, and immigrants in particular are having
A little difficult.
a little difficulty. A little is an understatement, but yes, a little difficulty.
Well, first, I like to say that I would hope that you, if you want to come to the USA, that you come prepared. I think the days for people just getting up and coming, those days are long gone. And we have to understand the climate that we're in, and we have to fully understand that every country has its own laws to make, and we have to abide by those laws. So I would like to think that people who are coming here, that they really do not overstay their time, that if they're, you know, those who are going to college and universities and so on, that they take advantage of what the country has to offer, but always try to be on the good side of the law.
Of the law, yes.
But we will give you as much advice as we can in terms of universities, in terms of putting you in touch with various associations, in terms of helping you if you run into difficulties, in terms of needing some assistance with finance and those kind of things. That is what the consulate is here for. Of course, if you lose your passport or you have immigration issues, and I want to say a word on that. The consulate has put on a number of seminars, and we're going to be doing even more next year. These things are very, very important. And I want to encourage Barbadians, especially, but all Caribbean citizens, to really pay attention to these things. And that when we put them on, I'm going to bring them to the people. Okay. So we do a lot at the consulate, which is in Manhattan, but I'm going to bring them to Brooklyn and Queens and so on. Yes. But it is important that people, you know, we put in a lot of effort into these things. We have lawyers there and so on, so that people can ask some questions and put them in touch with people that we can verify. But these things are very, very important. You have to understand the context of what is happening in America now. And it's very important that you pay attention to these things. Take advantage of what Barbados offers in terms of citizenships for first descendants and so on. Yes. And it's always good to have a plan B, and sometimes a plan C too.
You talked earlier about supporting students. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum now, the businesses. There are lots of small businesses here in Brooklyn. What do you have planned to facilitate these, both entrepreneurs and long-standing businesses who may need the support of the consulate?
I'm here to support, we're here to support in any way we can. I'm going to try to go around to as many of them as I can. I've gone to a few actually. Okay. But one of the things we want to establish is the database, because there are quite a lot of Barbadians who are doing wonderful things here that we don't, we have no knowledge of. We want knowledge of all Barbadians. Yes. But so that is a first step. But I want to go around to all of them, see what their needs are, and also to get them to, as I said, to maybe invest some of their talent and skill in Barbados. important.
As Consul General, do you meet with local elected officials here?
Yes, I do. I've met with a few, and we have various meetings. They invite us, and we interact with them. I'm having a session shortly to do with housing and small business. And these, you go to these things because you can learn different things which might help Barbados. We're not only interested in Barbadians. Help us a lot in terms of their remittances, and they send back various to help various causes. But we're also interested in knowledge and that exchange. So going to these sorts of interactions by the mayor's office and so on. And we've had some in Boston already. I've been to Boston twice since I've been here.
Okay.
These things are important for us so that we understand what is happening in the jurisdiction, so we can better advise our own people. And so that we can also say, well, this is a need.
Yes.
This is something that Barbadians living in Brooklyn or in Queens, this is something that they're interested in, and maybe get it on the agenda.
Yes. Mackie Holder, who is the new Barbados Consul General here in New York. I know we're going to be hearing a lot about the work that you're doing, and Barbadians are wishing you success during your stint here in Brooklyn and in New York City. Thank you very much for coming and
Thank you,
chatting
Sam.
with me on Brooklyn 45.
It's been a pleasure to catch up with you after a long while.
After all these years, right?
We both have backgrounds in the media,
Yes.
and I really want to thank you, and thank you also for the work that you've been doing in the community among Barbadians, but also the wider community. And I look forward to working with all Barbadians, associations, and individuals, and achieving some bigger and better things here and also in Barbados.
In Barbados.
Yeah.
Thank you, Oral Holder, Barbados' Consul General in New York. You also heard New York State Senator Zellnor Myrie discuss efforts to raise the minimum wage for prisoners, although he did say the incarcerated. You can watch this program on our YouTube site, www.youtube.com/Brooklyn45TV. Please also visit our Facebook page, like us, and most importantly, post your comment about anything you've heard and let us know how you feel. You can also go to our Snapchat page or Snapchat page or Facebook page. On behalf of our Brooklyn 45 team, I'm Sam Tate.